everybody, it's me, Mr. Santee, Rob McNelis, and I am coming to you live from our Movement Mortgage office here in Santee. And I have with me today Ms. Nikki Copa, who is the Chief Compliance Officer for Century 21 Award, correct?
That's correct.
And the reason I actually wanted to have you up here today was because I wanted to talk a little bit about the market, about the real estate market, trends that you're seeing. I'm blessed to be able to talk to lots of agents and, from different offices all over the place. But you talk to a lot of agents.
Yes.
So how many agents are with C21 Award?
750. So we cover 3 different counties.
Okay.
So, quite a few.
So you've got a little bit of a pulse on the Southern California market of what's happening, what's trending, what's going on.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason that I wanted to talk with Nikki today. So with that in mind, where are you? God, what do you find, are you hearing is kind of like the biggest scare that agents and or buyers are facing in today's marketplace?
I think the uncertainty. People don't like change. And as much as we went through a pandemic and everybody said, I want the new normal, there really is no new normal. We have change constantly. And whenever something shifts, then we get people that are scared for a while. And then we have people that pontificate about when it's going to be the same. And sometimes they listen to that. So I think that for me, in working with my agents, one of the biggest struggles they have is trying to get people back to normal and understanding that, yes,
whatever normal means.
Exactly. Rates may have gone up a little bit, but at the end of the day, you still need a roof over your head, and your goal was to buy.
That's a good point. That probably was the biggest scare of the marketplace, was rates jumping up basically 3% in about 6 months. I mean, that's a significant jump. We went from the threes to the low sixes,
right?
Low threes to low sixes from December through June. Right. And we've now since come back a bit. We're now probably in the low to mid fives. Seems to be stabilizing somewhat. Although, of course, as soon as I say that, the market's going to freaking
of course
jump all over the place again. But it does seem to be stabilizing quite a bit. And I think as things stabilize, that becomes the new normal.
Right.
And once just people, it's not like every single week, oh, it's up another 0.25%. Oh, sorry, it's another 0.25%. And they were chasing the house while at the same time trying to chase a rate. And do they still qualify for that house because of the new rate? Right. So I understand the hesitancy of a lot of people in wanting to pause. But truly, I mean, for the last, month now, things have been pretty stable with rates vacillating maybe back and forth about 0.25%.
Well, and I think one of the biggest challenges we all have out in the industry is people get their information from different sources.
Fair enough.
You've got the internet that's screaming bubbles and, oh, don't worry, the rates will fall 2%. So everybody sits on the fence to wait for this perfect storm. There isn't a perfect storm.
No.
And so, unfortunately, it's us trying to re-educate a lot of people and say, here's the thing. What did you want? What was your goal? To get a 3.5% interest rate or to buy a home? And
that's a really solid statement right there. We always talk about how you marry the house, but you only date the rate.
Right.
Right? Because you're going to be in the house for hopefully the long haul, like marriage.
Let's not talk about that. I try to avoid those conversations.
But the rate is something that can change. I mean, as markets fluctuate, as you decide, hey, even if you're in the house for a few years and you build some equity up, you may actually decide to take a little bit higher rate just to pull some cash out to do some major improvements to the house because it's overall cheaper for your long-term financial goals and needs. So the rate is not something that should be necessarily driving the conversation as much as the house, as much as your side of the venue as opposed to my side of the venue.
Why are we here? Why are we having this conversation? Because you wanted to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
So let's make that happen. And if you do think rates are going to drop 2% in the next 6 months, awesome, refi.
Yeah.
But
get the house first.
Exactly.
House. So now I've also heard that prices are falling like lead balloons.
Don't we wish?
Right.
California.
Okay. Yeah. But
no, it's just taking longer to sell things. And unfortunately, we are seeing some price
longer
shifts.
than what?
longer than 6 days.
There you go.
We were sitting at 6 and 7 day markets, and that's insane with 15 offers. So now when the house is on the market for 10 days, if you haven't set those expectations properly in the beginning, you've got a seller that's freaking out and a buyer that's saying, oh my gosh, this must be a discount now because it's been on the market so long.
So long, 10 days.
And looking across the nation, we're looking at 4 months as average market time, and we're freaking out about 3 weeks here.
Yeah, and still seeing, I just saw, who was it? Was it CoreLogic or Adam Data? One of the two, I can't recall which one. It was yesterday, the day before, they had talked about where homes are still selling, and nationwide was 44% were selling at market, with another 23% selling above market.
Right.
So over almost 65% are selling at or above market still,
right,
nationwide.
And I think you also have to take into consideration the agents on the other side. What is happening right now is when you go out to list a home and they say, my neighbor sold for $850. Well, guess what? You're not going to get $850 for it. It's $825. And instead of having the tough conversation with the seller, they listed it at $850 or $875. Yep.
Yes.
And then you see a price reduction,
there
so
you
it
go.
didn't sell at market.
And that's what I see quite a bit. When people talk about prices dropping in the market, it's not the overall sales price year over year sales price. It's, hey, they overreached when they listed that house to begin with. They knew that the house was worth $800 and listed it for $875 to get the listing, and then decided, okay, after it didn't sell for a couple of weeks, you know what, let's walk that back a little bit and now bring it back to where probably should have been to begin with,
where we knew it was going to sell for,
yeah.
But it just wasn't something that a seller was ready to digest.
The other thing I think is interesting is we have such short memories. We all look at the what was that? We all look at the last 2 years as a normalized market.
Right.
It's last 2 years were the most non-normal market we've ever seen. I've been doing this for 30 years. You've been doing a couple years.
Yeah.
One or two. And this was the most non-normal market other than maybe 2008, which was, industry caused set of circumstances.
That's just not something I want to remember.
Me either, but that's, that is what it was caused by our industry. This is such a significantly different set of circumstances, where it was a perfect storm, if you will, in the right way.
Right. Because
people had more time on their hands to go do that shopping.
Right.
We didn't have the normal trends of waiting for the kids to get out of school and, oh crap, we have to hurry up and get the house, get into a house before they go back to school, and that, that summer frenzy, because no kids were in school to begin with, so they could shop anytime. And there were also a lot of people changing the way they looked at their housing.
Right.
Okay, well, maybe I'm forever working from home now, and so if I'm going to be at home all the time, I don't want to rent an apartment. I want my own place, or I want a bigger yard, or whatever the case may be. So that changed quite a bit of the way everybody looked at things for the last 2 years. And with rates being, held so artificially low for such a long period of time, that added to that frenzy.
Absolutely.
Of, I need to get this house now. If you go back to 2019 and look at today's numbers compared to 2019, this is the third best market in history. It is. It's the third best market for rates in history as far as for loan applications in history. Right now. But we all go, well, gosh, the market's falling. People don't want to buy. Obviously they do, because loans are still closing. The third best market in history, but it's just compared to last year and the year before. You and I were just watching that little video a few minutes ago about Loan Depot, and they did their IPO, and it's their stock's crashing now because everybody was thinking this was the way the market was going to go. Like we would continue to do this volume of loans for this forever,
right? And
it just wasn't realistic. But you compare it to more normalized market, 18, 19, 17, 16. Holy crap.
We're doing really well.
You're actually doing really well. You would have loved in 2018 to have a house sold in under 30 days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and each visit was actually an important thing, which is interesting because coming from our perspective, out there, it's really leveling the playing field and really raising that bar again. Because honestly, for the last 2 years, you could take a listing and literally just put it on the MLS and it would sell. And you just hoped you had a good enough agent that wouldn't let it fall out. Now you actually have to market the home again. You have to follow up with clients. You have to talk about what was the showing like, what was the feedback, and be able to have those conversations with people, which is causing a lot of angst, honestly.
Yeah. But being honest and forthright up front will save you a lot more on the backside.
Absolutely.
And knowing that, hey, seeing a 16-18% year-over-year appreciation rate, that's not sustainable.
Right.
That's not realistic.
Well, and what's amazing to me is how many experts in the field are surprised that the market shifts. I'm like, okay, but that's the definition of a market. I mean, it's always shifting at different times. We used to have more predictable times. We'd go into the summer selling season, as we used to call it, and you had a nice 4 to 5 fat months, and this was where everybody moved. Now it's just whenever, and people are paying more attention to the media. And unfortunately, it's not necessarily taking the time to read the entire article. It's just
the headlines
have skyrocketed.
I love seeing one from, I think it was Dinah Oleg at CNBC saying, delinquencies up 113% year over year.
Right now there are 3.
Yeah, really, because last year there was a moratorium.
Right.
I mean, people weren't having to make payments, so of course it's up. But if you look back to 2019, 2018, it was like 78% lower than 2019, and 80-something% lower than in 2018.
Right.
So it's still super low. It's just
it's perception.
It's perception
in the way you choose to look at it.
Year-over-year sales units are down. Well, there's year-over-year less units to buy.
Right.
I mean, there's an explanation for everything, but they want to sell. If it bleeds, it leads. So that's what I continue to see, and I just try and educate people that, look, this is when we do our numbers and forecasts for them, buy today and what that should look like for you in the future. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you do a 4 or 5% year-over-year price appreciation rate, those are still wonderful numbers.
Right.
It's a great investment, because it's also increasing? Rents.
Exactly. You're
going to live somewhere.
Well, it's funny because we get this a lot. Is it a good time to sell? Is it a good time to buy?
Okay.
And one thing I can always say, it's not a good time to rent.
Yeah.
It's just not. So yes, there are advantages and disadvantages to buying at different times with different rates, but it's not a good time to rent ever.
Right. Yeah, we've seen anywhere between 13 and 18%, depending upon where you are in the country, year-over-year rent increases for new rents. Right. Average is about 8% for rental increases year-over-year for renewals.
Right.
So, holy crud. And that's not going to stop. That continues as well. There's always been those increases.
And you're paying somebody else's mortgage.
Yeah.
Why not pay your own? And yes, I understand a rate might be higher. But think about it. Your first house that you bought, what was your rate?
Oh, my rate was 7.75 on an adjustable. It was on a 5.1 adjustable, a VA 5-year adjustable.
I still remember I had a first and a second, 6.25%, and got the second at 5.75.
Wow.
Thought that was awesome, and I was so excited.
You got a heck of a deal.
Now, people are freaking out. 5%? Are you kidding me? And, the thought process of what you're doing, you are investing in your future.
Yeah.
An investment doesn't turn overnight.
Right.
This is you paying your mortgage payment off instead of somebody else's.
I do recall somebody last year, quoting a rate at 4%, and not last year, earlier in the year, and I would never pay 4%. Like, I just insulted them. Well, gosh. I thought that was still a pretty darn good rate. The 2% are gone. I'm sorry.
Well,
so were the 3s.
Enjoy your rental.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we all get into situations that everything isn't perfect. There are certain things, and if it drops, refi. You have opportunities.
That's really a key thing. So, where do you see what's your crystal ball say for the future of housing appreciation, or where's that? Where do you think that's going?
In a market cycle, it's always going to go up and down. We've been up and we've been in a seller's market for a while. I do expect it to level off come the holiday season when we usually slow down anyway.
Which is normal. It's a normalized holiday season, yes.
And with that being said, we will see prices probably go down. Not necessarily because they need to, but because people are used to having an offer within a week. And after a month, then they're going to reduce. And we're seeing it now in a week's time. So that being said, I think that will have an effect on pricing. Big thing that we have to look at is that we haven't built enough in California.
That's huge.
And at the end of the day, we have a housing shortage.
Yes.
So until that's cured, and what do the experts say? That's 15 years down the road if we built every day.
Yeah.
And we're not.
That's not. Yeah, and we're not. Especially in California where everybody's not in my backyard. No more growth, no more carbon zero, and we're all going to live in grass huts, I guess, and walk to the forest to pillage for food because we're not going to have jobs.
We're growing our own in our backyard.
There you go. But there's no yards. We don't want any yards. We only going to have patios.
Flower box.
There you go. Flower box.
But that being said, because that shortage, that's what causes demand. And supply and demand's a thing. We can look at rates. We can look at consumer confidence. We can look at all of those things. When we have more demand than the supply that we have, you're always going to see the prices. That's why our prices are where they are.
Yeah. And I actually do see a time in the near future where I do absolutely believe that there will be a drop in rates just as we get past this inflationary conundrum that we find ourselves in right now. It's going to put us into a recession. The rule of thumb is 2 quarters of GDP decrease is a recession. We've now had that, but it's not official until the official.
And we put an asterisk on it.
Yeah.
It was because of the pandemic, and now there's monkeypox.
So, but it's there. We all know it. Production slowing down. Job growth is slowing down. People go, well, yeah, but you can't have a recession when you've got the lowest level of unemployment seen in quite some time. Well, that's actually when it starts,
right?
Because everybody's when not as many people are buying stuff anymore, then they've got to start laying people off.
Right.
And the biggest segment of the last jobs report, I mean, by 2/3 was part-time jobs.
Exactly.
But hey, look at the job numbers. We're employing more people, but that's part-time because they're getting second jobs. More people are getting second jobs to be able to sustain themselves and their families with the cost of inflation. So as we do end up into a little bit of a recession there, the Fed's response to that typically is to artificially lower rates by buying mortgage-backed securities and leveling that out so that more people are able to get into more a better financial situation for themselves. And
the cycles happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're always going through cycles, and quite honestly, the correction is something that, in my perspective, we kind of needed. It was getting crazy. To try and buy a home, you had to give up your firstborn or second if the first one was a problem. Buy him a puppy, make sure you did the Netflix. I mean, the offers we were seeing were insane.
Yeah.
And no buyer, in my opinion, after all these years in compliance, should be buying a home without doing inspections and having some contingencies.
Amen.
And the fact that we were seeing it every day, that's just not good. And
I agree with you. It's not good for the industry as a whole.
Right. And it's not good for people.
Right.
You know what? It made sellers a little bit more greedy than they needed to be, and it made buyers very, very angry. And so that being said, we're certainly going through the repercussions of that now. But
speaking about compliance.
Absolutely. A lot of people that felt that they did not get their due diligence periods, and even though they waived them. So with that correction, it's great because we can get a better balance. Our job is always supposed to be a meeting of the minds. The seller wants to sell, the buyer wants to buy. All we do is work out terms. But when we're totally dictating something and nobody feels like they have a say in it, one side is so much stronger than the other, it's not a good situation.
What about months of inventory? What are you seeing there right now?
Right now, we're
especially for Southern California, San Diego. I mean, you're in San Diego, Riverside, and Orange County, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about those 3 counties.
SoCal, we're still under 2 months.
Under 2 months.
Yeah.
So a normal market is 6 months.
Right.
A normal market meaning it's not a seller's market, it's not a buyer's market, it's kind of a par market, like 6 months,
right.
Theoretically.
Well,
right?
and California actually has revised that because we haven't been at 6 months in so long that now they're saying a balanced market is 3 to 4 months supply. So we're still not even close to there.
No.
But that being said, buyers have more options at this point. We saw them go out and say, nah, I'll wait for the next one because they felt like they had options. So it took them a little bit longer to come to market. So when you look at that, when we had properties that would go on the market and the buyers would buy within 3 days, that's what you look at months supply really changing quickly. Okay, now that they're sitting for a month, okay, it's not necessarily that we have a lot more inventory, it's just there.
Right.
And so that being
something there.
Yeah, we didn't get more homes to sell. It's just taking a little bit longer to sell, which, like I said, is a good thing for everybody.
That is very true. I do appreciate that as far as I never even thought about that compliance side of, people waiving appraisals and waiving inspections and waiving termite and all that kind of stuff, and how that, that just put people in such a precarious position that they don't know what they're necessarily getting into.
In March, they were excited saying, I got the home. And now Uncle Fred says, you bought it the wrong time. Values dropped 50 grand. You overpaid. So, you got
when they haven't.
Exactly.
They haven't.
But it's perception.
It is
and what
perception.
you hear out there.
Yeah, and it's I do find that most of the people that are predicting the big bubble burst don't own homes.
Exactly.
So it's not predicting, it's wishful thinking.
Right.
Because they're hoping that there will be some sort of major correction that will allow them to get into the market when they should have gotten into.
Well, and think about the whole bubble thing. It's filled with hot air, okay? Ours isn't. People put money down on homes.
Yeah.
They have skin in the game.
And
that
more
makes
equity,
a difference.
More equity now than there has been in many, many, many years nationally, right. Which is why people are less likely to walk away from homes in any period of time. When you have the ability to sell it without damaging your credit or damaging anything, and maybe even walk away with a little bit of money in your pocket, why would you not do that?
Absolutely. Well, and home has a different meaning. After the pandemic, I'm sorry, but it did change things. People definitely saw that as, I think before that, we were looking at the 2008, 2007, a home was it was something that you didn't have to put equity into. You didn't have to put a down payment down there, and if you walked away, you walked away.
Yeah.
There was another home, you know. And when we went through the pandemic, home really got a whole new meaning. And even when they were talking about millennials saying that they didn't want to own homes, well, it's one of our biggest segments right now.
Absolutely is.
And
they're the biggest buying segments in the marketplace.
Exactly. So looking at that, we definitely have seen a shift in what people are looking at. And I think that that's really our job, is to make sure that we keep people on point with what was your goal. If your goal is to own a home, then yes, rates are important and market conditions are important, but it's never going to be perfect. And if it is, you're going to find out 2 months after you did it. And you're going to be like, whoa, I did it at the right time.
That's true.
But there's no siren that goes off that says now's the time.
Today's the day.
Exactly.
Today's the day. This is the day that you nailed it on all accounts. This was it. Yeah, you're right. You don't, it's hindsight's always 20/20. And like talking about the recession, you don't know you're in a recession until you're looking back and finding out, we were in a recession, because you got to wait for more numbers to come up.
Exactly.
Hindsight's always 20/20, and this is no different. So your advice then is what, as far as if I was a buyer in today's market, do I buy or do I not buy?
Buy, because your option is to rent. And honestly, if we're looking at inflation and people are talking about inflation rates and all of that, okay, at the end of the day, when you pay rent, you're at 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so what's the point?
Yep.
If you buy a home and you're able to put your money towards your mortgage payment, you are using that towards your future. Mm-hmm. And I also think that with when we're looking at investments, when we're looking at property as an investment, have to understand that property isn't something that usually turns overnight.
Right.
Okay? That is a long-term investment.
Right.
And it should be something that you enjoy. And, understand that the biggest benefit you're going to get out of what you buy is
It's a roof over your head.
Yeah, and the joy of being a homeowner.
Yeah.
And the privileges that it brings to you.
Yeah, which still exist.
Yes,
Even
absolutely.
in today's world, they still exist. I mean,
They're trying.
Fair enough. But you still have the tax deductions. You still have the depreciation, and every time you make a payment, a portion of that goes towards the reduction of your balance of your loan, which gives you even more equity.
Absolutely.
So you're constantly putting money away into that account that is it could be your retirement, it could be your savings, it could be what you pass on to your heirs, whatever you want to do. It's like I said, it's a whole lot better than paying rent.
Exactly. You're going to write the check anyway.
And if you are on a fixed rate mortgage, then that payment is set. That's it. That's the payment.
Right.
That's the payment. Versus rent, it's likely going to go up again next year and again next year and again next year.
Absolutely. All the rental protections that they put into place in the state of California have actually backfired. Rents have gone up.
Oh, yeah.
And so all of that being said, this isn't going to change. You know, rents will continue to escalate. So, and you don't have control over your future. You know, if your landlord calls you and says, I've decided to sell, then guess what?
You're out. You got to
You're
find
moving.
another place to rent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, your life only has security for whatever the time in your lease is.
Mm-hmm. And not anything longer than that.
Right. And even that, you know, these days people change minds and contracts don't necessarily mean what they should.
They'll look for every way to break it.
Absolutely.
Or make it uncomfortable for you to want to stay.
Right.
Yeah, this is true. So all in all, just my prediction is that we are still going to see appreciation. I do think it's going to get closer to the single digit numbers, 4 or 5, maybe 6 year over year. I do think we're going to see a drop in rates end of this year, first part of next year. My best guess is into the low to mid 4s. But this 20% year over year appreciation rate. Right. Don't expect that. Don't go into it buying. No. Don't go buying a house thinking, oh well, it's going to be 20% more next year for me, and I'm living the dream. Like you said, it's more of a long-term investment. I mean, if you're going to keep a house for 3 to 5 years at least, you know what? You're probably doing the right thing. If it's less than that,
understand you may need to be flexible. You may need to rent it out. You know, again, the market does fluctuate. Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking at buying an investment and looking at this truly as an investment, you have to know that you have to be flexible. It's just like getting into the stock market or anything else. When you buy in, you know what? When you want to sell, you got to look and see where it is.
Is it the best time to?
Exactly. And this is no different. So there are options. You rent it out. Then somebody else is paying your mortgage payment.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it still goes towards your future.
And there are truly not enough homes being built. The deficit grows every single day. Right. There are more household formations being created every single day. And we are not building anywhere near enough. And on top of that, the types of homes being built are drastically changing.
Absolutely.
Government definitely, especially in California, they want high density, up vertical. Right. So people looking for detached houses and things of that nature are finding even more difficult time to find something on the newer market or a new build or anything of that nature. And the ones that are being built, they're not cheap.
Right. No,
they're not cheap.
And that's why making a sound decision and understanding that you may hold it for 5 years. You may hold it for 7 years. You may in 2 years go, wow, I made some money and now I need to get out. Okay. We don't know. And as much as we can sit here and guess, we really don't know. So that being said, looking at it, it has to be what's in it for you. It's just like going to a high-end restaurant. And if you say, I need to get my money's worth, well, okay, part of it's the ambiance and the enjoyment. Mm-hmm. If this doesn't mean anything to you, don't go there. Go to McDonald's, because you won't get your money's worth.
Can I supersize?
If you can, if that's important to you.
Well, thank you very much, Nikki. Is there anything else that any bits of advice, any other things that you...
No, you threw supersize in there. So where do we go from there? You know what? Make the right decision for yourself. And, home ownership, and in my experience, I've been doing this for 22 years. And I have not had anyone that said I regretted doing that. Because when we talked about it, it was truly, this needs to be for you, for your family, for your future. And no matter how long the investment is, as long as you're doing what's right for you and your family and making sound decisions, you'll be able to sell it when you need to sell it. You'll rent it when you need to rent it. You'll live in it when you need to live in it. But just understand, we can't control the market, neither can you.
Now, that is very, very true. And so with that, Joe, you there? Are there any questions or anything that popped up that I missed? Oh, you're muted, Joe. There he is.
You know, you would think I should know that.
That's all right. It happened to me, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that's all right. What about all the new homes being built? Do you see more buyers for the new homes versus the single family homes?
Go ahead.
One of the things that we saw was that the waiting lists for new homes were about 3 to 4 year waits. Now they're calling people because so many people did drop out. And that was with the increase of rates. So we're definitely seeing the new home prices were escalating higher than our resale was. And that wasn't something that was sustainable. So they are coming back down. But even with what's being built, it's mostly infill. So that being said, it's just not enough to even cause a dent in the shortage that we have. So it will help with the demand, supply and demand. But at the end of the day, the demand is going to outpace the supply for years.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, just seeing it in Santee and just even being on council in the city of Santee, where it's a struggle to get anything built.
Yeah.
It's really a struggle for any developer.
And it's expensive.
Especially right now. There's still supply chain issues. There's still issues getting, components for appliances so they can build houses, but there's no appliances to put in it. Well, you can't sell the house until it's got certain appliances. Otherwise, it's not habitable.
Right.
So yeah, it's really it's a difficult situation for builders, and so that's a reason that I've seen a lot of builders put a pause. Where we are down on housing starts, permits, nationwide, because there's the supply chain issues and just the cost of materials. And then finding labor that wants to actually build them right now is still difficult.
Absolutely. Getting them to show up every day.
Every day?
I know.
What? Come on. So yeah, these are all things that go into that supply versus demand. There's too many people chasing too few goods.
Right.
And that is what will continue to drive prices up. Like I said, I think where people are getting cooler heads, right, and not just bidding beyond themselves just to get into something. But
absolutely. But
a lot of that, like you also said, has to do with rates having gone up. They can't afford necessarily to go crazy with high offers. So yeah, I unfortunately don't see the housing that's being built currently coming anywhere near taking care of the supply or the demand that's out there. Was that it, Joe? Whoa!
Oops.
What the heck?
That's one of my chickens. I hit the wrong button. Now I'm back at Walker Preserve. Let's go back to Santee Lakes.
There we
go.
All right.
No,
definitely not the chicken's eyeball.
That was frightening.
No, we don't need that. No, that was all the questions.
All right. Well, then, Nikki, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And until next time, I think next time we are going to be checking out one of our local restaurants here in Santee and giving them a shout. So check back next week. And if you have any other questions, please reach out. Drop questions, comments below. Happy to answer them and get back to you real soon. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
And bye-bye.